Muy buenos días y bienvenidos al Conversatorio
Good
de
morning and welcome to the conversation with the winners of the initiative Development Superheroes 2021 with President Mauricio Claver-Carone. This event will be in Spanish, transmitted on all our social media, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and in English on our YouTube page in that language. Remember to share the link of this transmission with colleagues and friends that can find it of interest. Development Superheroes recognizes the implementation of creative and innovative solutions during the execution of development projects financed by the IDB in Latin America and the Caribbean. And so we promote operational excellence of projects. We systematize learning. We exchange knowledge and lessons learned to share this with other executing agencies that could be facing the same challenges. Development Superheroes is aligned to Vision 2025, our roadmap to accelerate post-pandemic recovery in the region. This is part of the effort to improve the implementation of projects, their monitoring, and the measuring of results, hand in hand with the executors so that they can have a positive impact on the people of the region. But our superheroes don't fly, nor do they have superhuman strength. Our development superheroes turn challenges into opportunities. In 2021, we received 91 proposals from 24 countries of Latin America and the Caribbean, thus turning it into the most successful edition of the contest to date. A panel of experts of the different sectors of the IDB selected 8 finalists that participated in 2 categories. Executing agencies are clients that have successfully faced challenges in the execution of projects and that share the lessons of their experience. Executing agencies and clients that have completed their projects and have successfully complied with their development objectives. The finalists participated in a virtual event where they presented their projects to the top management of the IDB that then chose the 4 winners. A virtual education project in Ecuador that showed the importance of the participation of the community for successful assistance to boys and girls with disabilities. A solution that provides fresh water, infrastructure of basic services, or of utilities in conflicted areas of El Salvador. A project for teacher training focused on innovative pedagogy that improved their educational results in Belize. And finally, a project that developed a digital governance system of the land in Ecuador and that opened space for conversations, for dialogues, and generated trust among the different stakeholders. We welcome you to this conversation session of Development Superheroes 2021, a space to learn or to meet our superheroes firsthand. And now, we leave with you the president of the IDB, Mauricio Claver-Carone. Hello, good morning, and it's a pleasure to be here with you to accompany us in this conversation session to meet true superheroes. No Marvel, no DC comics, true human superheroes, people that are really changing lives, not in cartoons, not in movies, but in real life. And I want to start by greeting all our executors, counterparts, our clients that are watching this transmission. And I also want to greet our colleagues at the IDB, and very especially the winning teams that we're going to meet of the development superheroes who we will be talking to in a few moments. We're going to have the privilege of hearing their histories, their stories in the execution of these projects. And they are the heart of everything that we implement. And without their daily work, we would not be able to improve lives. So thank you for that effort. And this is something that many times we don't know. The projects face enormous challenges, and it is the teams of these executing agencies that are in charge of overcoming those challenges. And the same thing happens with some superheroes. Many times they save the world without the world even knowing. But today, we want the world to know who these superheroes are. So we want the opposite. We want everyone to know about the great work that they're doing, who these superheroes are, what they're doing, and how they're improving lives. We want to highlight their management, to make the lessons learned visible that could be very useful for other executing agencies, and to take maximum advantage of their experience, to scale it and do it in other places. This process of execution, revision, learning, and to share the lessons learned is directly linked to the use of the pillars, the columns of management of the IDB, what is our operational excellence. Now, when we talk about operational excellence, what are we referring to? We're referring to transparency, effectiveness, efficiency of projects. These cases today in El Salvador, Belize, Ecuador are a great example in their capacity to innovate. So we can and we should learn from the challenges that you're facing, because they're going to show us, they're going to teach us, and on the solutions that you've developed, so that others don't have to start from zero. You're giving us an advantage, and we're learning together with you. The 2025, Vision 2025 is our roadmap, which identifies 5 key areas to reinvest in the Americas and accelerate the post-pandemic recovery of our region. And as we know, they are integration, regional integration, supply chain, digitalizing, support to SMEs, equality of gender and diversity, and action to climate change. The projects that you superheroes represent and that we're going to talk about today are totally aligned with the vision to 2025. So we're now going to have a conversation. And with no further ado, because you haven't come here to listen to me, you've come to meet true superheroes. So let's start with these development superheroes. And I'm going to start with Jaime Sarmiento from Ecuador. And Jaime is coordinator of the project on the use of TIC for learning of students with disability that you saw in the presentation. The challenge, obviously, has been very complex. And so the question is, how can we continue to educate this population of students during or in this virtual world? Because it's not just a matter of teaching them over a computer on a screen. To teach a student that can't hear or can't see or can't use their hands, it's an enormous challenge. And what this project has taught us is that sometimes it's not just enough to focus on the beneficiaries of projects, in this case, the students. Sometimes it's vital to enter into contact with the families of the beneficiaries. So, Jaime, I'm so proud, and it's an honor, and thank you for being with us today. Please tell us, why was this dialogue, this discussion that you started with the families of these students, why was it so pivotal for the success of this project? Thank you. Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of development. Congratulations. To me, it is a pleasure to be here. And in the defense of their rights, individuals with disabilities have positioned this phrase, nothing above us without us. And this is the fundamental part of our project. We firmly believe that the development initiatives should have the direct participation of the people in the communities that they are aimed at. So we applied this principle, but since we're working with minors, we also seek the participation of the families. And in this dialogue process with families and between families that begin this access, that grow through participation and mature with empowerment, we call this a dialogue. And for the greater objectives, conversation, a dialogue is fundamental as a mechanism to develop trust and assume co-responsibility. By giving importance to the experience of the families and the students, we can learn more about their potential. And this is the basis for planning focused not on disability, but on the capacities, the skills, and the potential of these students. And thanks to this close work with the families, we identified the changes that the pandemic brought, such as the deterioration of the financial situation in homes. And this dialogue allowed us to propose solutions aligned to their needs and make adjustments when we see that the goals are not being met. So the evaluation of the knowledge of the families and of the individuals with disabilities allow us to delve into the potential and to the wealth of this project. And so they could go from the peripheral part to the center of the process of innovation. And that is the reason why we're here today. How inspiring, Jaime. And call me Mauricio, don't call me president. And I have another question. Something that drew my attention was the use of technology, and obviously it's another part of the vision to 2025, the use of technology. How have you used technology for the learning of these students with disabilities? So is technology needed in these cases? Is it required? And the technology that is required, can you find it in Ecuador, or do you have to go to another country? Do you have to go further to find it? talk to me about the logistics. Well, the availability of technology for our students with disabilities is really not the problem. The problem is that the majority of the existing technologies are not designed taking them into consideration. In our project, we developed studies to personalize the delivery of equipment to students in line with their specific and diverse needs. And we took advantage of the double functionality of technology as a tool for education and as a means to monitor the physical aspects, psychological of the students. However, the true challenge is in generating the necessary conditions to take a leap from a basic use of technology towards a level that facilitates significant learning. When we suspended classes in person, many teachers were worried because they didn't know how they were going to teach over a screen. Jennifer, one of our teachers, which is also mother of a child with intellectual disability, she said, if it is difficult to draw the attention of our children, even in person, how are we going to achieve results in this virtual world? And this is something that is pending both in education in person and virtual. And in general, in the entire region, little has been advanced in the education of individuals with disabilities. In Fe Alegria, we've been able to consolidate an educational consolidation proposal that has been able to overcome limitations to access. And we've been advancing to generate better conditions in the level of learning. But this would be even easier, President, and I take advantage of this opportunity, I'd like to invite you to Ecuador to see the project, our inclusion model. It would truly be an honor to have your presence and go into further details. Jaime, count on it. I accept your invitation, and obviously it's always a pleasure to visit Ecuador. Thank you for inspiring me. You are a true superhero, and I'll see you in Ecuador. Now let's move on to Cecilia Vizcarra, which is the project that we saw that transformed the communities of Las Palmeras in El Salvador. It was 2,200 families that were benefited with different interventions of this type. Among other things, what we saw were that they did mitigation work, mitigation to risks, and promote actions in response to climate change. But the most challenging part here was to make these interventions in a very, very difficult zone where there is a gang, a very famous gang in the world that operates and that we've heard of, which is Mara Salvatrucha. And the women that were a key for the different interventions of the project, we saw them. They were essential. And there is nothing as women's empowering in order to develop things. So Cecilia, tell us, how is it that women were the key that opened the door so that the project could advance in the different phases? Well, good morning, Mauricio, IDB team, fellow winners. It's an honor to participate in this conversation. And to specifically answer your question, in Las Palmeras, we have the presence of 9 communities and an inter-community one made up mainly by women. They were fundamental throughout the whole cycle of the project. And I would even dare to say that from when the program started, they participated in the approval of the contract for the loan. Then the IDB created the technical binders in a participatory way where they play a fundamental role. And then after that, when the construction process came, they were the key to enter into that community, because it's not easy to go into a territory that has a high presence of Mayras. And at the beginning, in fact, we were suffering of a certain level of paranoia. We were paranoid, definitely, but then little by little, we started to go in and to meet them. They got to meet us. And thanks to the support of the women of the community in this construction process, they were also participants. They were part of the payroll of the construction company that played a fundamental role because of its social profile. And then after that support, because we put together a team with all the professional women of the construction company, supervisors, the women of the community, the women of the executing unit. Men also joined this, but mainly with the women, we managed all the conflicts. So we avoided a scaling of the violence or aggression. And finally, we used a strategy by appointing them as supervisors of their own projects. Because with many youngsters, they would lower their their productivity. They didn't want to work. It was good to place them in areas where their mothers were the supervisors. So that generated a moral commitment and made them work more and more enthusiastically with greater effort. And definitely, women played a fundamental role in the success of the projects. Thank you, Cecilia. And it's truly interesting. And I'm not surprised. It's a fascinating way of involving the rest of the community, particularly with the opportunities for jobs. And I've been saying and repeating this, that nothing is better than a job in development, in the social and economic impact, because this generates many opportunities for people, social opportunities, education, housing. So within all of this, tell us if there were youngsters from Mara Salvatrucha that took advantage of some of the job opportunities that resulted from the project, because we know that part of the problem with youngsters is the lack of opportunities. So tell us.
Yes, of course. Jobs were offered. Young people, young men, young women who could work were given an opportunity to participate in the project. And we know this very well because on a monthly basis, the building company, the construction company would provide a technical and social report on this. And on the social aspect, they would document and based on age and gender, the jobs at a local level that were opened up and the jobs that were being taken by people from the community. So about 200 men and 40 women worked on that for approximately 2 years during this building process. And let's remember that the communities, many of them have been excluded. This is the pandemic, the worst one we've suffered in the last few decades has been the pandemic of discrimination and exclusion. So including people from those communities was critical to the success of the project. First of all, because it provided food security. If we don't know what poverty is, then we cannot criticize. Why are we giving jobs to gang members? And I say this because in a forum at a university, somebody asked me, do you think it's fair that young people who've never committed crimes and are unemployed are not given this opportunity? And why are we generating these opportunities for gang members? The answer is that these gangs are often the result of exclusion, of public policies that have not been implemented in an effective way. And so we shouldn't just think about benefiting those who are doing okay. We also need to generate opportunities for others and through jobs. As you said, Mauricio, that's the best way to do it. Employment opens doors. It provides dignity to people. It improves their sense of well-being. And so it's a good thing when we have a project as big as the one we had in Las Palmeras, where we invested over $5 million. What a good thing it was that there were opportunities for all. Thank you, Cecilia. And we really want to provide jobs. I'm from Miami, where people from all parts of the region come from different socioeconomic, educational levels. They come to Miami and they generate opportunities. They come there seeking employment too. That's why I want this administration to be about jobs. And an interesting number here, the GDP of all Hispanics, if we only took that into account, it would be the 7th economy in the world. It would be comparable to France, the GDP of just Hispanics in this country. So that potential is there in those countries, the best talent in the world. It's just a matter of opportunities, of generating them. And this creativity, what we've seen from this superhero like Cecilia, is something that's scalable. It can happen in other parts. It's an inspiration. It doesn't make sense that we wouldn't be able to do this in other parts. So Cecilia has really inspired us to do much more.
Project with which they began to transform the pedagogical model of primary education in Belize. And right then at the time, they placed their bets to train students with critical thinking skills, with the capacity to innovate, transform overall learning and teaching. And in Belize, not only did they improve the educational level of students, but even more amazing, they improved the educational level of teachers. Because, when we saw this virtuality, what people didn't think about was that at the end of the day, it's not just about the challenge of connectivity for children. And then we saw a project in Ecuador about children with disabilities, but also the training of teachers, how to do so, how to do that virtual education. Primary, elementary school teachers on average used to get a D in math in the test that they were given at the national level. But after this project in Belize, the teachers in Belize, their math average is now a B, from a D to a B. So Newland, I'm fascinated to know, how were you able to take such a significant leap in the learning of the students, but of the teachers?
Right. Thank you, Mauricio, and thank you for recognizing Belize and our project. And good morning to our viewers. Well, I believe the success of our project had to do with the fact that it was designed based on research which said that the most important factor in improving student learning is, of course, the quality of teaching. And so, we invest millions of dollars in infrastructure and new technologies and improving textbooks, and we normally don't see the type of results that we want or we expect. And we've also invested millions of dollars, for example, in Belize in training teachers. And so we've seen an increase in the number of trained teachers, but of course the student results stay the same. And so we knew we had to do something different. And so we went back to the research and looked at the quality of teaching and the type of teacher training that we're doing. And so that was what the KIC program did, focused on transforming from the traditional drill, practice, and memorizations that teachers traditionally do to having them become more facilitators of learning instead of the source of knowledge, to be able to guide children through inquiry and problem-based solving. And of course, this is a type of teaching and learning that will develop those critical thinking and problem-solving skills that we so desperately need in the region. And of course, like you said, as teachers started to learn to teach in this way, because we focused, in the past, it was you get your content courses here, you get your pedagogy courses there. And the most effective way to train teachers is, of course, on content-based pedagogy. And so as teachers learn to teach students through these methodologies, they themselves finally understood some of the content. And so their math competence increased as well. So it was simply that we learned that we don't need to increase instructional time, invest a lot of money. All we need to do is to change the pedagogical approach, and we're going to have significant improvements in student learning as well as teacher efficacy.
What you just described is data-driven solutions, causation. This is like today in the 21st century, we have all this data, and you identified a key to a problem through research, through the data that exists. Is a 21st century solution, 21st century innovation, and look at what you're doing and the impact that you're having. But I'm curious about another topic that really has come to the front of this whole project of the quote unquote math anxiety, which is something that teachers also suffer from. We've seen studies and talking about data that say that the students of these teachers tend to learn less about math. So tell us about, I'm fascinated with this concept of, I feel sometimes like I have, although I'm in a bank, so I shouldn't say it, math anxiety. Tell us about the math anxiety of these teachers.
Yeah, so what we, of course, math anxiety, first of all, is, that fearful feeling some people have when they're faced with either teaching or performing math. And that usually comes from, having bad experiences in math. And I think primarily from not being taught math in an appropriate way, which is, of course, hands-on and practical, so you can make real life connections. And of course, teachers with math anxiety tend to pass that on to their students. And we saw in our project as well, those teachers who had medium to high levels of math anxiety, their students tended to perform less well in mathematics. So we know that this is a paradigm that needed to change. And of course, it wasn't a direct target, but as teachers learned how to teach math and they built their competence in math, their anxiety automatically decreased as well. And that then transferred to the students. And it's a wonderful outcome, because we know that students who are more able, are more competent in math, are more confident in math, what is going to happen is that automatically we're going to see more of them become interested in areas like science and technology and engineering, which is really one of the development outcomes for our country and for the region.
Competence building, confidence building, that's how you get through math anxiety. And I gotta tell you, when I was a kid, I had math anxiety, and my life today is all about math. And actually, there's probably nothing I'm better at. So, and I'm in a bank, fascinating. So it's doable. And what you are doing is intervening at the early stage, innovating. Thank you, Newland. You are one of our superheroes. Ahora vamos con Antonio Bermeo, director ejecutivo entre el 2012 y el 18.
Now we're going with Antonio Bermeo from Sin Tierras, Ecuador. And they took a gold medal. They have 2 gold medals for this effort. So what they did was to update land registry information for over 1 million farms. This is a tremendous achievement. And I like this case a lot because this cadaster, this land registry, allows rural people to make their ownership of the land formal. And it's very important because when they have their title in their hands, they can more easily access services from the financial system. They can be more productive. They can do more with what they produce. And this has to do with the commercial integration of the region. So you were working very slowly, very gradually for 2 years on this. That was part of the challenge you faced. So tell us, how do you build confidence, and how was this essential and fundamental for the progress of this initiative? Good morning, President. Thank you very much for the honor of sharing some of our experiences with you. It's also an honor to be here with these other superheroes and their projects and to spend this time with them. The cadaster is essential, but it's also unpopular also because it's linked to taxes. And with the delays you mentioned, yes, in fact, we were having difficulties in generating the necessary ties to the local communities and governments. However, we were able to build confidence. We changed that initial perception, and that allowed us to consolidate this initiative. We established solid relationships with the citizens, especially with the women. They were the ones who were the best respondents to our surveys, who most welcomed us in our home visits. And we worked with people from over 60 municipalities and their local governments. And we had a special communications strategy, and we were in ongoing contact with their agencies. So over 600,000 families participated, allowed us to go see their farms, document them, and add their information to the land registry. And practically 100% of the municipalities that participated were able to be added. And thanks to this trust, they told us even about their legal problems, asked for advice to help overcome them, even problems coming out of the work we were doing. The municipalities asked the project to advise them in terms of land taxes. And this was the local governments as well. And even though this is within their jurisdiction, but we were able to help them. And we also helped with other issues that had been ongoing. So we generated credibility based on the quality of the information we had. We promoted clearly understood messages. We had publications that were widely distributed, providing information about the scope of the project and the expectations. And we conducted our work in an opportune and technically sound way. And so we responded as quickly as possible. And so this is being maintained. This means that we can have that permanent bond between the citizen, the municipality, and the central government. And I think initiatives such as this one, which was under the Ministry of Agriculture in Ecuador, can build permanent trust, and anything that generates credibility is important. So the actors are part of the project and they're empowered. This was part of the formula that allows us to reach the results we did. Thank you very much, Antonio. This was transformational. We can see the importance, and we've seen it everywhere, to really have your hand on the pulse of these communities. And I think what this land registry actually did was to promote investment, or that's what we hope, that the productivity increase as well. What was the effect that you saw on these lands in Ecuador? Yes, thank you. We believe that productivity has increased, but also we know that there will be a new agricultural census and productivity census that will take place. It hasn't been done for 15 years, and that's when we will be able to confirm this. We have a baseline, though, that we established, and the executing agency, the loan is done. So an impact evaluation is being conducted right now. There we might see differences between the 71 cantons that are using our cadaster and the ones that are not. And so we will contrast those, so whatever local communities are using it and the ones that are not. The productive transformation and others demand long-term efforts. So this needs to come along with strategies to help with production chains, also the distribution and commercialization or trade or marketing of the products they produce. So a cadaster is essential and strategic in this endeavor because it is an active support for public and private decisions on investments, and it can also help guide how we seek greater productivity. We have a mostly agricultural country with a lot of resources for farming. So we include 15 variables in some mapping that we did, and this allows us to determine what the best possibilities are for agricultural development. And the land registry, again, is essential for these kinds of decisions, also to better take care of the environment, for better land use, and to help avoid the migration of small land owners. So our cadaster is a significant catalyst that is bringing about a transformation in the rural sector, because it's also generating national level information that is updatable and being updated. We had a few examples during the implementation of the project because we helped with very specific information after the earthquake of 2016. And there was a threat of an El Nino phenomenon in 2016, although it didn't happen. So investments will increase in this project, and the productivity of our lands in Ecuador will increase, and our land registry will help with that. Thank you very much. That's a winning formula, and that is a superhero. Now, one last question for everyone. And in 30 seconds, what is your message? Each one of you, what message would you give to other executing agencies that are implementing projects and facing challenges? What would you say to them based on your experience? Let's start with Antonio from Ecuador.
Okay, well, I think that there are no recipes. Each project builds its own pathway and has its own results. I think that participation and trust are a key factor for the success of a project. Good actions and results are transmitted. In our case, they were done from one local government to another one, and that allows a better participation. I think that the proposals and the actions of a project should be permanently contrasted with the reality that we encounter. And I think that we should learn to listen at every level of interested or of stakeholders and participants. If we're able to put together high quality teams and achieve synergies with the contracting companies that come, because if they have good results, the people in the projects also have good results. So there we could achieve the adequate results. And I think that additionally, if we work with intensity the positive results are always evidenced. Thank you, Antonio. I agree.
Same question. What advice would you give to those that have similar challenges and so that they can learn from your experiences? Newland.
Yeah, I think for our project is what it was important, unlike traditional teacher professional development where a single teacher goes and then they go back to a school environment that's not supportive. We used a whole school approach and we even involved parents so that they understood what was happening. So that was key to the success. But I think beyond that, it was important for us to do the rigorous testing, the assessment, incorporating that type of assessment within your project so that you know at the end of the day what works. It's very important for a region, Latin America and the Caribbean, to know what works for us. And when you build in an assessment such as we did with the randomized control trial, you can say with confidence, this is what works, this is what you can invest in, and you can build on that.
I love it. Evidence-based research. That's exactly right. Ahora escuchemos a Cecilia Vizcarra de El Salvador. ¿Cuál es su consejo?
Cecilia Vizcarra, what would your advice be? I think she didn't hear me. Did you hear me? Cecilia, what is your advice? Could you hear me? Yes or no? Can you hear me, Cecilia? Yes, right now I can. Okay, so what would your advice be? Well, 1,000 things come to mind, but I can't say them all in 30 seconds. However, I would say that the executing agencies should work focusing on excellence on a daily basis. Many times we think that because of our specialization, we are the superheroes. But I would advise the members of the executing agencies to leave our ego at home and to go to the territories and to treat the communities with warmth. Let's work for inclusion, for citizen participation, for resilience, and above all, for sustainability, so that these can recover from a catastrophe if it were to occur, so that they can recover faster. The pandemic has left us great disasters, but if we all work with excellence, with effort, and we love the communities, we offer them that love that they need so much, I think that we're going to achieve this transformation of our dear Latin America much faster and the so desired development. Count on us, Cecilia, and I absolutely agree. And we'll finish with Jorge Sarmiento from Ecuador. What is your advice, Jaime? Well, we've been working for around 10, 11 years with the IDB, and we've been able to document relevant information on inclusive education and the technologies for the training of individuals with disabilities on matters where there's little experience and especially not inclusive. But I would highlight these lessons, that to involve people in the innovation process, people that are the reason for which we design development projects, this generates high impact solutions. So in other words, the best way to connect technologies with the needs of the people is by involving them as central stakeholders, as the main characters of the innovation process. And another way is to share the best practices with other institutions, mainly, in our case, public and the academia, to expand the scope of the projects. In our case, this has allowed us to have incidence on public policies and give sustainability to the initiatives, and to involve institutions that know in depth the nature of the social problems is essential. And Fe y Alegría is in direct contact with thousands of people. And so we can contribute with a close vision of these projects and be allies of institutions such as the IDB that has access to knowledge, networks that are essential to be able to scale up projects. The knowledge of the bank and its experience have been valuable, very valuable. The bank is a great resonance box where it has allowed us to reach areas where now children are struggling alone. Thank you very much, Jaime. And well, frankly, what we have seen are the true superheroes.
Real human beings. Gracias por inspirarnos, por compartir los aprendizajes.
Thank you for inspiring us, for sharing your experience, your lessons, and thank you for being superheroes of development and for the great work that you're doing in your countries. To me, this has been an extremely enriching discussion, and I think that for everyone. And I'm fully reloaded, re-energized, because I'm crazy to go to each one of your countries to be able to see firsthand all these experiences that we've been able to feel and see directly through this meeting. They are an example as to why in our vision to 2025, we talk about a decade of opportunities. You are catalyzers of those opportunities. So thank you, Cecilia, Nilan, Antonio, Jaime. I thank all the executing agencies for their daily work, for the dedication that they're putting to improve lives. And thank you all that accompanied us today in this conversation, and our production team as well here at the headquarters of the IDB in Washington, D.C. for having connected us in this very dynamic way. So thank you all very much, and thank you for the inspiration.